Hello, sorry, let me go back a little bit so I can read what the objective is. It is 3.8a. We will analyze a fable by identifying the theme of the story. Analizaremos una fábula identificando el tema de la historia. We will be reading a story that is a fable today. They're short stories that were invented long ago and passed down from generation to generation. The characters are often animals because these were stories they used to entertain kids and to teach kids lessons. And yes, there's a theme or a lesson at the end. A lot of these stories are written by this guy named Aesop. We think that this might be a portrait of him, but again, this was so long ago, we're really not sure. It says here in a little bio that many of his stories were written down into English just around 500 years ago. So this guy lived 2,600 years ago, supposedly. And he's the one who wrote or invented all these stories. They weren't written originally. They were just told down, again, from word of mouth. We'll go over the themes in these stories. Little Red Riding Hood, remember the theme was don't talk to strangers. The little girl talked to a wolf while she was walking to her grandma's house, told the wolf her business. He was able to go to the house, and there's different versions of what he did. The Boy Who Cried Wolf again. The theme here is to always tell the truth, because if you lie, no one will know. Or if you lie a lot, no one will know when you're telling the truth. So, don't talk to strangers. Always tell the truth. I don't know if you've heard of this story, The Lion and the Mouse. It's another one of Aesop's stories or fables. It too has a theme in the end, which we'll go over that in class. But the theme of this story is actually stated at the end. They say good deeds are rewarded. So if you do someone a favor, they'll usually do you a favor someday or sometime. Or it could also be don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge people by their appearances, because the lion misjudges or judges incorrectly the mouse, thinking that the mouse could never help him at the end. So sometimes these stories or fables can have multiple themes, more than one theme. Again, these are traditional because long ago they didn't have school or books, so people taught their kids or their grandchildren lessons by telling them stories, and we have all these different places in the world, all these different cultures where people were telling stories, passing stories down from generation to generation. Whatever story these kids learned from their grandparents, they taught their grandchildren when they were old, and that's how you pass things down through the generations. Vocabulary for the story, we have elegant, which is graceful in style and beauty. This is an elegant dress. This man is dressed elegantly in his tuxedo. It could also be an elegant painting. Remarkable just means extraordinary or amazing, like a remarkable catch, a remarkable goal, remarkable view of the mountains where you're up high. Flattery means when you praise someone but being dishonest or exaggerated, like telling someone you like their shoes or their tie when you really don't like them. Or this woman here is flattering this skinny guy by telling him he looks really buff and muscular. Usually you flatter someone when you want something from them, or you are going to ask them for a favor, like tell your mom or dad how wonderful they are before you ask them for money. How wonderful they are, yeah, okay. Spectacle. Spectacle can mean a couple things. It could be a spectacle view, something that's entertaining or awesome. It could be your glasses. Those are also called spectacles, so depending on the context. Imitation is when you imitate someone or act like someone, like these people imitate Elvis Presley, who was a famous singer who died around the time I was born, actually. Imitation cheese, there's imitation crab. So if it's imitation, it's a copy of something. This boy's copying his dad. He's imitating his dad. One summer morning, Fox woke up and started out on his search for breakfast. He couldn't find anything to eat in the forest, so he trotted over to the nearby farmyard and saw Rooster perched on the fence post. "Good morning, Mr. Rooster," Fox said in his most friendly manner. "I didn't hear your beautiful voice this morning. Is anything wrong? My day doesn't start without your singing." Rooster proudly shook his crest. "I used to listen to your uncle's song," Fox continued. "Oh, he was a great singer, and oh, so beautiful. I miss his voice very much." Rooster waved his elegant crest from left to right and back again. "What a vain fellow," Fox thought. And here I said, describe the setting of the story. And here I am. "Can you sing as well as your uncle?" Fox asked. "Of course I can. I sing much better," Rooster finally answered proudly. He opened his beak and took a deep breath. "Wait," said Fox. "When your dear uncle sang, he shut his eyes very tight and stretched his neck very straight. Then he sang his heart out." Why does the fox ask the rooster to sing? Why is he flattering the rooster? "I can certainly do that," said Rooster. He shut his eyes very tight, stretched his neck very straight. "Cock-a-doodle-doo! Cock-a-doodle-doo!" Fox leaped at him, seized him by the throat, and ran toward the forest. The farmer saw Fox and began to chase him. "Stop, thief!" he cried, and came closer and closer. "My dear Fox," Rooster said as Fox held him tightly in his jaws, "why don't you just tell him that I belong to you?" What a good idea, Fox thought. He opened his mouth and called to the farmer, "This is my rooster, my breakfast." At that instant, Rooster flew up to a tree branch. The hungry fox said to himself, trotting away, "Think before you speak." Describe the theme on page 578. What lesson does the fox learn? As Fox walked along, he heard some strange rasping sounds, and in a few moments he saw a large boar sharpening his tusks on the trunk of a tree. "Zook, zook, zook." "I beg your pardon," said Fox. "Why are you doing that?" "I'm sharpening my tusks," Boar replied. "These are the only weapons I have to fight my enemies. Unlike you, I have no sharp claws or fast feet." Fox looked about. Except for the noise Boar made, the forest was silent and peaceful. Surely this Boar was a fool to spend his time this way when there was no need. "But there's no danger here that I can see," Fox said. Use details from the text in order to explain why the Boar is sharpening his tusks. Those are his tusks. He uses them to defend himself. "Not at this moment," replied the Boar. "But when the hunters come after me with their dogs, then it'll be too late to sharpen my tusks." He went back to the tree. Zook, zook, zook. Fox walked away and thought, "He's right. If you're prepared to defend yourself, you have nothing to fear." Fox was very hungry now. He soon came upon a large vineyard at the edge of the forest. Bunches of juicy grapes hung from a trellis. They looked ripe and ready to eat. They smelled delicious. "What a beautiful grapes!" Fox licked his lips and jumped up to get a bite of the purple bunches, but he couldn't reach them. He jumped again and again and again, but the grapes remained beyond his reach. He could not get nothing. Finally, he turned away and said angrily, "I didn't want those grapes anyway. Look at them. They are probably sour." He walked back into the forest. Boar, who had been watching, said, "We often pretend to dislike what we can't have." Describe the theme on page 590, as it is explained by the Boar. It was lunchtime now, and Fox was still without food. Then Fox saw Crow sitting on a branch with a piece of cheese in her beak. "Surely this is my chance to have something to eat," he thought, and so he addressed Crow. "What a handsome bird you are," Fox said. "Your glossy feathers are remarkable. Why, I believe not even the peacock's splendor can equal yours." Crow seemed interested, but still held the cheese tightly in her beak. "Your noble face and bright eyes are like eagles. No, not even eagles. If you can sing like the nightingale," Fox continued, "I will tell all the beasts that you are queen of the birds." What can you infer about the fox's actions on 591? Why is the fox flattering the crow? Crow had listened closely and liked what she heard. "This fox tells the truth. She was handsome and her voice was beautiful. She opened her beak and sang, 'Caw, caw.'" The piece of cheese fell into Fox's mouth. Fox gobbled it up and said to Crow, "Never believe flattery." Explain the theme on page 591. Who learns the lesson this time? After taking a nap, Fox trotted down the path and saw Rabbit huddled in the underbrush, trembling. A few seconds later, Deer ran past him with terror in her eyes. Fox became alarmed. Obviously, some terrible danger lurked in the forest. Peering over a hedge, he was surprised to see Old Lion snarling and pawing the ground. But when Fox looked more closely, he saw it wasn't Lion at all. It was Donkey. He was draped in a lion's skin and was enjoying the spectacle of the forest animals who ran in fear at the sight of him. Explain the actions of the donkey on page 595. Why are the animals scared? Fox leaped over the hedge and stood in front of Donkey. "So you aren't afraid of the king of beasts?" Donkey said to Fox in a growly voice. "We'll see about that." He bared his teeth and gave his best imitation of Lion's roar. "Hee-haw! Hee-haw!" Fox burst out laughing. "You can't frighten me," he said. "I see your gray ears under the lion's skin, and I hear your bray." He trotted through the forest thinking, "No matter how hard you try, you can't hide your true self." Again, describe the theme as it is presented on page 595. It was late, and Fox was getting hungry again. He sniffed the air for something good to eat, and this time his nose took him to a small hollow in a big oak tree. Inside, he saw some fragrant bread and fruit that had been left by a woodcutter a short time earlier. Fox crept inside the hollow and ate every last morsel. What does the word morsel mean as it is used on page 596? Use the context clues to determine the meaning of the word woodcutter. "That was delicious," said Fox. "I am finally satisfied. Time to go." But when he tried to crawl out of the hollow, he found he was stuck. He had eaten so much that his stomach was too big to squeeze through the narrow space. To make matters worse, his meal had made him very thirsty. "I can't even get a drink of water," cried Fox. "What shall I do?" Raccoon passed by and heard Fox's lament. "You'll have to stay there until your stomach shrinks again," he said wisely. "Next time, don't be so greedy." Fox had to admit Raccoon was right. He settled back into the hollow. "Oh, well," he said, "time fixes everything." Fox fell fast asleep, and by the time the moon rose, Farmer, Rooster, Boar, Crow, Rabbit, Deer, Donkey, and Raccoon had done the same. I don't remember there being a raccoon in the story. Explain the theme on page 596.